Hi, everyone. Good evening. I think it is evening for, well, it's evening on the East Coast. You're on the West Coast, not quite yet. Welcome to this is my fourth segment on the Dereck Chauvin trial, and this is about the verdict. And it's interesting because I was planning not to do this particular show today because I was on my vacation and I was having a lovely time out on the West Coast. And I just flew in last night really late and I was very tired, but I was going to spend all my time on the plane, going all through the defense. And then I got on the plane and the Wi-Fi failed. So I didn't get to see it. So I was going to do that today, but I was busy. And then as soon as I heard the verdict came out, I'm like, well, that show's done. So now I'm going to do the show on the verdict. Before I continue, please remember to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and you'll get every time I put up a show, you'll get a notification, and you also support the channel so I can do more profiling stuff. Also hit like, that's always important. And there's a bell there too. If you hit the bell, that's really when you get the notification. So if you subscribe, you don't get notified of anything. You're just supporting the channel and you know where we are. But if you hit the bell button, then you get notified. So do that, please. And okay, now to this verdict today, which was quite a surprise, I have to say. Well, I take that back. It was not that I didn't expect this so quickly, but I kind of thought even if they were going to go for guilty on all charges, they would hold out a little longer in making that decision for two reasons. One is the thing I was hoping was that they would take their time going through all the information because it was very complicated. The medical information was complicated. The police methodology was complicated. There's so many little issues which one could theoretically want to review and go through. So that would be one thing I would have hoped they would have done. And I don't think they did that because I think their decision was made up really quickly as to exactly where they were going with this. And we'll talk about why that may be in a minute. My second thought was perhaps they might just take a little longer just so it looked like they were truly analyzing all the issues and weren't just right there saying, okay, we're going to go guilty of all charges. We're done. We're out of here. Don't burn down the place and don't find my house and kill me. So which is probably one of the major reasons this case should have been a mistrial, shouldn't have been held in Minneapolis, should have been a mistrial, and it's going to get an appeal. There's no question about it, because the jury, they were under so much stress, there was so much to influence them. There was so much fear. I wouldn't even want to be on that jury for that reason, because unless you knew you were going to make him guilty to begin with and you didn't care, you're like, yeah, I want to be on that jury because I want that guy to go down. In which case, I'm happy because we're gonna make sure he's guilty and we don't have to worry about anybody being mad at us. And but there's this whole case there was so much emotion surrounding it and so much media hype, so much protesting, so much violence. It's very hard for any jury to go in there and not be influenced by that, which is one of the problems that I've always had with a civilian jury system. I don't like it. I've been speaking against it for years. I've talked to already on this channel about how I do not like civilian juries. I don't like them for two reasons. One is the fact I don't think they can understand all the information. I don't believe they understood exactly what every one of the medical issues was, or I don't believe they understood all the police methodology issues. I don't think they understand all that. So they're just not that knowledgeable. And that's why you don't take your car to a person who's not a mechanic, because they don't know what they're doing. And they can't, I mean, as somebody came and asked me what I thought, which mechanic, Pat, do you think is better, mechanic A or mechanic B? Do you think what mechanic A said is right and what mechanic B said is wrong? I don't know. I mean, I open a car door, I get in it, I start the car, I put my foot on the gas, I know where the brake is, I'm done. I could listen to two mechanics and I don't know who's telling the truth. I don't know that much about cars. So what I might do is say, he's more convincing. He's been in the business 20 years and this dude's only been around for 2. But that might not be proof that one knows more than the other, just because he's done it for 20 years. Maybe it's been a really shitty mechanic for 20 years. And this guy's worked with, his dad on all kinds of incredible cars. And even though he's officially been in there for 2 years, he's brilliant at it. So this is one of the problems that we don't really, the jury cannot in this day and age really go and understand all that technicalities. It's just really, really difficult. So that's one issue. And the second issue is emotion. And that is the problem with the fact that when you're not in this business, emotions get caught up a lot more. When you've seen a lot of crimes, I can look at a crime of a child, and I have looked at a crime of a child who's been brutally murdered, and I don't sit there and go, oh my God, they got to catch this guy. They got to catch this guy. They think he did it. You got to get him. You got to get him. I don't get that way, because I can look at this and say, okay, this is my job. I'm a professional. It's not that I don't feel for the child and the family, but I'm a professional. I'm going to look at this crime, and I'm going to determine if there's enough evidence that this guy committed it. I'm not just going to say, oh, he committed because he should have committed it, or because I don't like the guy. So I don't let emotions get into it. So if I were chosen to be on a jury, and this, I mean, what I would call not a civilian jury, but a professional jury, for example, then I would hopefully be with people also professional, and we'd sit there and we would analyze all these things, and we'd know when some people were lying to us. We'd know the tricks people try to play on you, and they're trying to prove things that aren't necessarily true, but they've been paid by the defense or paid by the prosecution, or they're there for some other reasons. We're able to more decipher those things without the emotion behind it. So that's my problem with juries. I think a lot of them are well-meaning, and sometimes some of those people are not well-meaning. Especially when the defense or a prosecution picks certain people to be on the jury, they're not looking for the most intelligent, logical person. They're looking for the personality that will go to their side. And people think, oh, that's not what they're picking. No, yeah, they are. Do you know, I will never be on a jury because I'm a profiler. Never be on a jury. That's not going to happen. They don't want me on there. They don't want logic. So what they're going to look for is specific things. Like, I was actually brought into the only time I ever went to be considered to be on a jury. And it was the weirdest thing. The question was, everybody who has a relative who, wait a minute, if I remember how this goes. Anyone of the people sitting there, if you have a relative that's been in prison, please come up to the front. And all these people went, a huge amount of people, had a lot of family members in prison. Anyway, they all went up to the front. And the few of us who didn't go up there, we all got thanked and excused. So somebody really wanted people on the jury that had relatives in prison so they would understand the defendant and have some sympathy for him. It's like, oh, he's done some bad things, but hey, so is my cousin Eddie. So is my brother, so I'm not going to hold that against him. So that's emotion right there. That's emotion. That's not focusing on evidence. So the prosecution is going to pick one kind of person. Defense is going to pick a different kind of person. But neither of them are picking the people because they're logical, super fair, and going to be scientific. That's not why they're picking them. So, so I've always disliked the jury system. Interestingly enough, in the Freddie Gray case down in Maryland 6 years ago, I think the first, I'm trying to remember this, I think the first was a mistrial. These are the police where they had, I think, 6 police. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while now. Anyway, Freddie was a drug user, drug dealer. Anyway, they were putting him in the vehicle and he ended up dead. And the first one was a mistrial or something like that, or hung jury. I can't remember how it worked. But anyway, they had a second chance. They went for a bench trial and they had the judge make the decision. And you can do that in Maryland. And they all got off and were not convicted. And so they didn't trust the jury. So we have this situation where, juries are a crapshoot. If everybody remembers the Casey Anthony case, I mean, there was no question in my mind that the evidence supported absolutely that Casey Anthony killed Kaylee Anthony. But what happened? Well, she got off. Why? Because the jury decided I don't know, the defense made some claim like, oh, her dad did this and made some crazy story. And they're like, okay, we could go with that. I'm like, What? I was so angry when I saw that happen because I could not believe they couldn't. This was such an obvious case, and yet the jury let her walk. So this is the problem with jury systems. And so we have a case here where the jury, first of all, you got to wonder who couldn't get out of jury duty. I mean, you ever wonder about that? Why you can't get out of jury duty? If you don't want to be on this jury, you could have gotten out of it. Believe you me. There's a million ways. One way is my way, which is I say I don't believe in the jury system, and then they don't even bother me again. But you could go there and you could say I believe in the death penalty, and then if it's a certain case, they'll let you walk. You could say crazy stuff. You could say whatever. I'm a white supremacist, and you won't be on there because defense won't make sure you're there. You could say something totally other direction. I'm a Black Panther, and then the prosecutor. Let's see how it was working. Oh yeah, then wait a minute. I'm forgetting who's who now. So if you said you're white supremacist, so I guess if you're a Black Panther, then the prosecution might want you there. And if you say you're white supremacist, maybe in that case, because the guy was white, the defense would want you. Who knows? I mean, this is a silly thing people could say, though, and the defense and the prosecution would then say, thank you and excuse, get him out of here, because they're looking for a specific type of person. So now you wonder, the people who were going up for this jury knew what kind of situation they were in. They knew that the country had been going crazy for a year. Violence was everywhere. Protests were everywhere. There was anger, massive amounts of anger. And yet you're not too happy. I mean, you're not too concerned about being on that jury. I mean, it had to be very freaky. So either you were an incredibly good citizen, or you had an agenda. And people don't have to say what their agenda is before they go in there, which is concerning. And that happens a lot because they don't have to tell the truth. They're not given truth serum before they get on the jury. They can simply say, I can be fair and I have no thoughts one way or the other. They could be lying like a dog. They could have every thought one way or the other and say, I'm going to put this guy away before they walk in, or they can say, I'm going to get this guy off before they walk in. So it's not like they come in with no thoughts. And especially in this case where it's not a case they've never heard of and have no feelings toward. This is a case where the country has gone insane over this, and they have tremendous amounts of feeling over all of this stuff. So there's the problem. So the jury came in probably with massive emotions to begin with. That's why I thought that, first of all, it should have been moved out of Minneapolis. It should have definitely been moved out of Minneapolis so that we could maybe lower some of the emotions, at least lower. If not, I don't know how you get rid of it, but at least you could lower it. Some countries, by the way, won't let media cover so much of this stuff before the trial. And that also helps lower things. They have it's a blackout on the media. Well, we don't have that, so the media just ramps up everything and completely screws up everything. So it's almost hard to get an honest, a fair trial in this country sometimes. So those were things going in. What's interesting is that we had an interesting statement, right before this all happened. Good old Maxine came out and she said, everybody, they should get even more confrontational if things don't go right. And that could have caused a mistrial right there. And the judge even was asked to make that a mistrial, because what we're saying again to the jury is, if you don't find Dereck Chauvin guilty, you're responsible for burning down Minneapolis. Who wants to be responsible for burning down Minneapolis? Who wants to be responsible for, if you don't find him guilty, that they're going to show up at your house somehow. They're going to find out where you live and show up at your house. Your kids are in danger. I mean, it's very frightening. It should have been a mistrial, but it wasn't. What the judge did say, which I thought was very interesting, is he came right out and said, that's pretty good grounds for an appeal. So I will guarantee you there is going to be an appeal. There's no way there's not going to be an appeal in this case. And very reasonably, there should be an appeal in this case, because there is so much wrong with how this was conducted. I'm not talking about the jury's decision at this point, or their verdict. I'm just talking about how it was conducted, under circumstances conducted, what kind of threats the jury was under in the community. It's going to be appealed. So I think we can see that in the future. So let's put that aside now. And now I'm going to get to some of the issues of the trial and where I think things, what happened with it. Now, if I look back up here, I want to come back up here because, let's see, where's Christine's comment? Right in the beginning, before we even started. Yeah. Now, this is a really great comment. Christine, you say, you still want to understand how all three apply. I'm confused. Help me out, Pat. Wow, that is a great point, because there's three charges here, and he was found, and Chauvin was found guilty on all three. And it's like, how does that work? And here's an interesting point on that. Do you know that I have to reread? I've got it here, so I'm going to read on my phone what the three charges are and what they mean. And I have trouble figuring it out. I have trouble. I'm going, okay, let me try to wrap my head around that. How does that work? If I'm having trouble, we don't think that people on the jury can't quite figure out what these three charges are either. I think that's another problem. They try to explain it, but it's, that legal crap that people get caught up in. So let me start with the worst charge. Where is it? Okay. And I'm going to read to you exactly what it says. Okay. So he was found guilty of second-degree murder. Now, what does that actually mean? It means second-degree murder is causing the death of a human being without intent to cause that death. Because first-degree murder is when that's premeditated. I want that guy dead. And you go in and kill him. Okay. That's first-degree murder is easy to understand, much, much easier to understand. It's like, I went and shot the guy because I found out he was playing around with my wife. I went to his house with a gun, and he opened the door, and I shot him in the head. First degree murder, I think that's pretty clear. Second degree gets a little complicated. Okay, so now, without intent to cause that death, while committing or attempting to commit another felony. In this case, the alleged felony was the third degree assault. Chauvin is charged with committing or intentionally aiding in the commission of this crime, which was assaulting George Floyd. Okay, so that's interesting right there. So to convict him on this count, this is what the judge, Peter Cahill, told the jurors. They must find that the former officer intended to commit an assault that could cause bodily harm or intentionally aided in committing such an assault. Okay, so now that's rather interesting right there. So first of all, the point is he had to be committing a crime against George Floyd. So the assault, so they're saying that he was assaulting George Floyd, not restraining George Floyd, not doing what a police officer must do in execution of his duty to control an individual under, who is violent and not fighting back and all this stuff, or resisting arrest. That he was doing more than that. That he was actually assaulting the person that he was restraining, or that he was in contact with. Now let's take a look at what a very clear second degree assault charge would be. Let's say a police officer pulls over a guy. The guy gets out of the car. He's attempting to arrest the guy. The guy turns toward him and is mouthy, calls the cop a pig. Okay, you pig, you stupid pig. And the cop just gets angry and punches the guy 10 times in the face. Okay, and the guy dies. I'd go with second degree murder on that, because he, first of all, is nowhere in the police's duty to punch some guy 10 times in the face. That's not part of police training. Now, the guy got angry at the guy. So he punched him in the face 10 times on purpose. And the guy died. Now, he didn't think he was going to kill the guy. He was just pissed. So he punched him in the face 10 times. That'll get you a second degree murder charge. And that's clear. The guy was assaulting the man, assaulting him. Now, in this case, the assault issue, I never thought was proven by the prosecution in any way that was substantial to me. Clearly, what they were trying to say was that the assault, Floyd was being assaulted, that all the police officers were assaulting him by restraining him. In other words, by holding him down for the amount of time, which he kept saying 9 minutes and 22 seconds, they were assaulting him, not restraining him. And that by what Chauvin was doing with his knee was an assault, not a restraint. Okay. I find that a bit of a stretch. I do. I find it a bit of a stretch to call that an assault. You may not like the way it looks. And if I just don't see that as a legitimate assault. I see that as a restraint. Now, one could say they restrained too much, put too much pressure, whatever. But it's a really questionable that should be considered an assault, and that's what a second-degree murder charge. He has to be committing a felony against George Floyd to get second-degree murder. And so the example I just made, that's how you get a second-degree murder charge. Let's say, for example, let's say you're robbing a store, and your gun, in a panic, your gun goes off and you shoot this owner and he drops dead. Again, not first-degree murder. You didn't go in there planning to kill the owner. The videotape showed that you weren't planning to kill the owner, but you shot him while you were committing the robbery. In my opinion, that's second-degree murder. Now, I just want to say very clearly, I'm no lawyer, okay? This is not, you have to research this stuff for yourself. This is the way I see it. And that's what I'm saying. If I was on a jury, I don't know how I'd see it, because it's complicated. It's freaking complicated. It's so hard to understand. So anyway, I personally didn't see the second degree thing there at all. Now we have another one. Third degree murder charge. That would be the next lesser charge. Third degree murder is unintentionally causing someone's death by committing an act that is eminently dangerous to other persons while exhibiting a depraved mind with reckless disregard for human life. Chauvin is accused of committing or intentionally aiding in the commission of this crime. Okay, so that means you're doing something that's highly likely to cause death. The defendant's act may not have been specifically intended to cause death, and it may not specifically been directed at a particular person whose death occurred, but it must have committed with a conscious indifference to loss of life. They felt that this one almost didn't. Charge was taken away, and then it was put back. And yeah, I'm not sure. I find that incredibly clear. I tend to think that the reason they wanted it back in there was because the prosecution spent a lot of time talking about how Chauvin caused the death of George Floyd, caused it, and not, and again, contributed could be good enough too, but caused the death, and that's why all this medical stuff came out. What did Floyd actually die of? Was it really asphyxia? Or did he die of heart failure, maybe brought on by agitated delirium, which is what I think he died of. I never thought the prosecution proved, and you go back to my last video on that. I never thought they proved that George Floyd died because of what Chauvin did. It's kind of like sometimes we're talking about COVID. Sometimes you're like, did the person die of COVID or did they die with COVID? And there's two different things entirely. So I actually did have a relative who died recently, an elderly person, and she died at the hospital. Family got COVID. She got COVID. She died at the hospital. But she also had a whole bunch of other conditions she was not in very good health. Let's put it that way. Now, COVID may have driven her over the edge. It's possible. So it could have been a contributor. It could have been a factor in her dying at that moment in time, or she could have died of something else and she just happened to have COVID. Or you can literally die of just COVID. So in other words, you have a super healthy person. My son got COVID and he was a super healthy 37-year-old. He did not die, thank God. But 37-year-old, and he suddenly had all the COVID symptoms. He ended up in the hospital with COVID pneumonia. And there's no question. He was fine before, then he had COVID. So if he had gotten sicker and sicker and went on a ventilator and died, I would have said he died of COVID. But there are other people who die with COVID. They may have been dying of cancer, or they may have been dying of the heart failure. They already were in heart failure, but they tested positive for COVID. So we'll call it COVID death. So that's why these things are a little tricky. So the question with Floyd came down to, did Floyd die because of what Chauvin did. Was it proven that he died from what Chauvin did? And one of the questions the defense asked was if they had found, if Floyd had died at home from taking this much amount of drugs, what would they have thought? And they said, well, that he died of a drug overdose. Okay. So he could have, it could be that he died of drug overdose. It could have been that, he had the heart failure and all these other issues he had, and the agitated delirium that could have sent him over the edge. So you have taken drugs, you got heart pressure, you go into agitated delirium, you die. Not necessarily because of what Chauvin did, but his own freaking out, I don't want to get in the car, I don't want to get in the car, I can't breathe, I won't get in the car. All that is agitated delirium. At that point, I think he was already dying at that point. And when he got to the ground, then he died. So I personally think that I can't prove that he died of that, but I also can't prove that he died from what Chauvin did. I don't even know if Chauvin contributed to it. He could have. But the point about a trial, the prosecution tries to make you believe, that makes the jury believe, that Chauvin absolutely either killed him or contributed to his death by, in other words, he wouldn't have died of all the other things if Chauvin hadn't pushed him over the edge. That's what they want to convince the jury of. The defense, of course, is going to do the opposite. They're going to say, no, he was already dying. Of this, all the other things, there's no proof that Chauvin actually killed him or contributed to his death. There's no proof of that. And the reasonable doubt thing that they always tell a jury is, if there's reasonable doubt, then you should not convict a person of that. In my opinion, the prosecution never proved had reasonable doubt that they ever proved that Chauvin killed him. Could have been true. I'm not saying it's not possible he contributed to it. I'm just simply saying I don't see that there was proof that he did. So that was interesting, but I think they wanted that in there because, let's face it, they had the video that looked really bad. They had a man being restrained saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Very effective on the jury and very effective in the public. So therefore, they wanted that in there because it looks like he contributed to the death of George Floyd, and they could get him on that. If they couldn't get him on the first one to prove that he committed a felony, I committed a crime when they were restraining him. In other words, if they couldn't prove the second degree by saying he was assaulting him, then they wanted to say at least he contributed to his death. So that's why they wanted the third degree in there really badly. Now let's go to the fourth one. The third charge. Guilty second degree manslaughter charge. That's culpable negligence where a person creates an unreasonable risk and consciously takes the chance of causing death or great bodily harm. Oh, let me go back up to one more thing, and the depraved thing on the third degree murder charge. There's this depraved issue in there. Is that the depraved one? Where's the depraved? Because that the thing with that, they're saying, he had that smirk on his face and everything that gave him that depraved look. So it was always kind of useful to whether he was really acting in a depraved manner or whether he was really smirking. That's kind of up to each person to sort of think. But I don't know again that's proven. Just it's there. So anyway, let's look at the third. Second degree manslaughter charge. When you consciously take the chance of causing death or great bodily harm to someone else, you take a risk. Chauvin is charged with committing or intentionally aiding we're back to, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. They keep going aiding in this whole thing. Culpable negligence is intentional conduct that the defendant may not have intended to be harmful, but that an ordinary or reasonably prudent person would recognize have a strong possibility of causing injury to others. So this comes down to if the judge told the jury this: there's no crime if a line of duty police officer uses reasonable force to make a lawful arrest. And that's what they had to decide. Did he use reasonable force? Now, this second degree manslaughter charge was the one charge I thought, if this had come down to that today, I might have gone, okay, that has its validity. There supposedly was training about what to do with a person who's in excited delirium or agitated delirium when they're on drugs and they're really going nutty. That there are better things to do than perhaps were done, better positions to get him into the side position. As soon as he goes limp, get him into a position where he can breathe better. Don't just wait around for the ambulance to arrive. You could try to give him some, try to do some CPR of some sort. There were issues, and I have to confess, because I was going to listen to the whole defense thing today about the training, and I didn't get to do it because this all of a sudden came up as the verdict. So, but if your training tells you this is what you're supposed to do, and you knew you were supposed to do that, and you just didn't really care, and you just were careless about it, and you're just like, then second-degree manslaughter is not a bad charge to get convicted of, because as a police officer, you have a level of duty that to your other person, to the citizen, even if you're arresting them, that they're in your care, so you should be doing certain things. And if you don't do those things, then you should be charged with a manslaughter charge, second-degree manslaughter. I'm okay with that. And here's something I just want to bring up before I forget. When people think that Dereck Chauvin, I want to bring this up. Okay, I got two things to bring up. Okay, one is that I've noticed that in just before the end of this trial, they kept talking about, the prosecution kept saying it was Chauvin's ego, his ego. They dropped the racism thing. It's like all of a sudden they weren't talking about race that much anymore. It's like that he had any racial issue in this. Now he had a big ego and arrogance. And that's I thought that was a better play, I thought, than to go with the racism thing, because I didn't see the racism thing there. Ego, possibly. He's just that kind of arrogant kind of guy. I don't know the guy. But here's something I just want to point out, that somebody pointed out that, George Floyd's, he's done drugs before and he never died before from the drugs. Well, actually, he had been in the hospital, for an overdose. He almost died. That's why he was in the hospital. So that time he could have died. He just happened, they got saved by the hospital staff. If the hospital staff hadn't saved him, he would have died of an overdose. So it doesn't mean that he couldn't have died of an overdose while he's being in police custody. So that's kind of, I thought that was kind of a silly thing that they were saying. Oh, well, he never died another day of so somebody, you got to die one day. So just whatever circumstances happen doesn't mean you die from those circumstances. I could eat a piece of cake and die. It doesn't mean the cake killed me. It just means I ate a piece of cake at this time I was dying. So anyway, I want to point out 17 years on force. I think Chauvin 17 years. I might be wrong. But anyway, for 17 years, and I wish every citizen would go through this. Go on a ride along in an inner city area on a Friday night, Saturday night, the best night of the week to go out if you want a lot of excitement. And while you're out there, you will notice how many times you have contact with people who are very nasty, who are criminal, who will resist you, who will spit at you, who will talk crap to you. I mean, you're not dealing with a good part of the community. There are nice people in the community saying, please get that guy who's standing on the doorstep because he's threatening me. You get that. The community wants you to come there and get these guys out of their neighborhood because they're assaulting, they're committing, they're selling drugs, they got guns on, there's gang violence, and the police have to deal with this every single day that they're out there. You're on every single day that you're out. You're dealing with a level of crap most citizens have never seen, except for on television. It doesn't register that, when you're physically in front of it, what you feel like. I used to get out of the car when I did the ride-alongs and stand there, and man, I'll tell you, it was like being in a war zone. And things happen very quickly. It's very frightening, and if something goes wrong, it goes, the way it goes down is so, it's like surrealistic. So you go into something like a fugue state almost. It's not an easy thing to be a police officer out on a beat. You're out there for 17 years. And I don't know how many guys this Chauvin has arrested, but I'm going to guarantee you a whole pile of people. He's arrested person after person after person after person for 17 years. He has brought them in. They haven't died. He's brought them in. They haven't died. They've resisted. They haven't died. This has gone on for years and years and years and years and years until this day when things went wrong. So just to point out, I don't think the guy was out to kill people. You don't go out as a police officer, especially, you're coming close to the end of your career. The last thing you freaking want is not to be able to retire and get your pension. You kind of want to just retire happily with a great career and your big pension and say, oh, I'm done. You don't want, after all these years, everything to go to hell. So you're not out there to kill people. That's insane. Nobody wants to. He didn't go out there saying, this piece of shit, George Floyd's a piece of shit. I'm just going to kill him today. No, he's dealt with so many George Floyds, so many George Floyds every day of his life. I do not see that there was any intent there. Whether he was careless, arrogant, wasn't paying attention, didn't follow some of the rules and training rules, maybe this is true, which would be legitimately a manslaughter charge, which basically you failed in your line of duty. But that's a big difference from committing to purposely assaulting, that he wanted to assault George Floyd, that he wanted, that kind of thing. I just don't see either one of the murder charges should have stuck. But I'll tell you what I think, and then I'll start going to your questions and your comments. I think the jury, in taking so little time to even consider it, I think basically they went with this whole concept. First of all, I think they're under great stress to come up with a guilty no matter what. I think they're being blackmailed into that. Whether they truly wanted to go that way or not, I think they're blackmailed into it, which is why I think absolutely this case should never have, it should have been a mistrial. Secondly, I think they focused on that one part of the video and said, look, he was killing him. He was killing him. He was choking him to death, which he wasn't doing, but he's asphyxiating him, which he actually wasn't doing. But that's what they're seeing. And I think that sticks. The prosecution was excellent. Okay. I'm going to say it. I thought the prosecution was fabulous. I think the defense was dreadful. I think he got a terrible defense lawyer. Sorry, Mr. Defense lawyer. I just think you did a bad job. I do. There's a million ways I would have taken that case. And I don't think I think he just didn't do well. I think prosecution did great. So if I'm sitting on that jury and I'm listening to the prosecution and not understanding what I just told you on these different details, or in the last video when I went through all the more of the medical issues, if you're not understanding all of those details, you're going to, in your heart, you're going to say, Chauvin just crushed that guy. He suffocated him. He killed him. He just killed him. I heard him saying, I can't breathe. And then he died. He killed him, period. And he was assaulting him. And during the assault, he killed him. I'm going to say a lot of people on the jury think it was intentional because they tried to play it that way to an extent. But I just think this is the problem with the jury system. I think it was a very bad verdict. I think it will save maybe Minneapolis from burning down. I think it was bad because I just don't think that the evidence supports a murder charge. Manslaughter I'm okay with. I mean, and even that I have to say, I haven't gone through all the details of the training issue. I may even say that was maybe even too much. Maybe he did everything exactly right. I see some things there that make me uncomfortable in that. So I think maybe he overstepped the training thing. Maybe he should have recognized the agitated delirium and maybe tried to get him on his side, maybe do something better. But then again, Floyd was fighting him. I mean, he was fighting him on the ground. I don't care what the prosecution said about, this doctor who made these crazy claims that he kicked his foot because he was having a heart problem. No, he kicked his foot because he was trying to get out. He did keep trying to fight. And so there was a reason why they were holding him down. But again, I'd have to go through all the Minneapolis police training, what he was required to do, what he wasn't required to do. But so manslaughter, perhaps, but I don't see the murder charges. I think are huge overreach, and I think it's kind of horrific and very horrific. And people who I think are very excited about that because they just don't like Chauvin. I don't think people like him. I'm not saying you have to like the guy, and I don't say you have to dislike Floyd to think, oh, Chauvin should just walk. No. I mean, I don't know either one of them. I know Floyd has had a criminal life. As people say, he doesn't deserve to die from that. Well, it doesn't deserve to be murdered. This is true. But that he was murdered, I don't believe he was. I don't have to like or dislike either one of them to come up with that. But I can tell you this, one of the most devastating things we're having is that for those who are very emotional about this and think, they got to take this guy Chauvin down, the long-term effects on policing are really, really going to be devastating to the United States. If you, as a police officer, feel that if you go out on a job and this guy's resisting arrest and you try to even restrain him, that you're going to end up in prison for the rest of your life, never see your children again. If you think of the guy's turning with a gun, well, he actually does have a gun. And as he's turning in that 1 second, he drops the gun right before, you shoot yours. And now they got a video with a freeze frame on that says, "Oh, look, you shot an unarmed guy," and you go to prison the rest of your life. If you the Atlanta one that went down, I mean, I saw nothing wrong in that one at all, and that guy's up for life in prison, or even worse. So who the hell is going to join the police if we as a community do not support them and do not support proper charges and proper trials? If we're doing things for other reasons, for political reasons that have nothing to do with what people are doing the right thing, we're not going to have anybody want to join that police force. I have relatives who have been police officers and are police officers, and I can tell you, if one of my kids came to me today, or one of my grandkids or niece or nephew came and said, "I'm thinking about joining the police force," I would tell them, do not do it. Even though I already have people I'm proud of who are in police work, I would say do not do it, because it's too damn dangerous. Not because of the criminals, which is already a horrifying, scary thing to be out. People don't realize how scary it is to be out there on the streets with the criminals. It's really something. So if you're already willing to risk your life for that, damn it if you don't want to risk your life going to prison because one of the criminals who is who has been nothing but a blight on the community resists arrest and accidentally dies for some weird reason, and then you go to prison for the rest of your life, even though you really didn't do anything wrong. So I'm not saying don't get rid of bad cops. Yes, get rid of bad cops. And if a police officer does something while he's on the job that causes harm or death of someone in an illegal fashion, I am all for prosecuting them properly. I don't have an issue with that. But I have an issue with this huge emotional thing where we're trying to take down one police officer after another on charges that are absolutely trumped up and don't deserve them. And we're going to get nobody. Already in my district, they couldn't even run the police academy because they couldn't get enough people to join. Now, all of a sudden, there's going to be no police on the streets, nobody to do the work of protecting the community. And so now you're going to have the criminals going, good deal. The gangs, good deal. MS-13, great. Now we got free reign. And if you've been in some countries, guess what? Guess who controls those communities? Because the police can't function there. The cartels and the gangs control those communities. They're very dangerous places to live. And once, because they've lost their police force, and they don't. That's it. They live in the Wild Wild West type of thing, and it's not so much fun. So be careful for what you wish for emotionally, instead of making sure that we really stay with being strict about these things and not taking people down because of emotions and politics, because we're going to end up with no police, and that is going to be a nightmare. So I'm going to go through some of your comments now so I can see here. So let's see. I'm going to work my way down here. Let's see if anybody has. I just want to go through some of the comments. I feel like the prosecution failed to prove their case and based their entire case on replaying the same video footage and imploring a call to emotion. Yeah, I mean, that was some damn good video. The interesting thing was there's a lot of other video that also gives great information about what happened prior to. And I say the most telling part for me was when George Floyd didn't want to get into the vehicle and was fighting them and saying, "I can't breathe," when he was standing up. So you're already seeing him having issues. And I thought that was really, really, really important. Oh, that's very nice. Why, thank you, Dr. Ahmed. You say, we'll celebrate 1,000 subscriptions for you soon. That's very nice. Let's see. Okay, let's see what you're saying. Okay, Be Real has a differing opinion. Says, I am pleased with the verdict. Okay. I bet a lot of people are pleased with the verdict. I obviously am not pleased with the verdict. And I think that, we'll see what happens with what's going to be an appeal, because there's unquestionably going to be an appeal. So that's going to happen. What was this one? Oh, that's a good point. The Casey Anthony case is a good example of how jurors can like one attorney more than the other. It's terrible, but yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about being swayed by a feeling as opposed to what you're seeing in front of you. You know, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you a story from one of my favorite shows, and I have great respect for the show because of this. I like the show Chopped. Does anybody here watch Chopped? And now they haven't done very many recently because simply because I guess they can't. They're not filming so much right now. But anyway, Chopped. So anyway, for those who don't know the show, you got 3 judges, you got 4 contestants, and they have to make an appetizer, a dinner, and a dessert. That's usually the thing. Sometimes there's a special program, but that's about that. So anyway, so then they give them these, surprise baskets. You open up and you go, oh my God, what the hell am I supposed to make? These 4 freaking ingredients. I'm supposed to come up with something delicious. Okay. So anyway, then they all make it and then they judge them. And then at the end, they pick the person they thought. They keep, each person loses on each round. They kick somebody off. And so you have 2 left and then they pick the winner. Okay, there was a show, and this guy came on the show, and first of all, sometimes there are people who come on the show and they tell their sob story, like, I've been fighting cancer, or my wife died in a car wreck a week ago, or something horrible. Those people don't necessarily win, which is good because that means the judges aren't influenced by the sob story. They're actually paying attention to the cooking. And here is my favorite example, though. So this guy comes on the show and he's an ass. I mean, he's a freaking ass. He's obnoxious as all get out. And the judges are so annoyed by this guy. And they even say to him in the show, God, you're just so disrespectful. Really? You're going to say that to us? And they were so pissed at him. Do you know that guy won? And you could see the look on the judges' faces. They were like, don't want to give this guy the show, but damn, he can cook. And apparently he was fabulous, like one of the best chefs they'd ever had on the show. He was just a horrible person, but they gave him the win. And I was like, I respect that because I know you don't like the guy. No, you really didn't want him to get the win. So this is what's so important. So you get the lawyers. And you get a lawyer that's likable, and you get a lawyer that's not so likable. For example, a prosecution, he came across so well. I mean, he just presented the case. He had a voice that was nice. He had a demeanor that was nice. He was also just really good at his job. He came across extremely well and was I rather liked him. And the defense came across as kind of a wuss. And he said some things I thought were stupid. And it was hard to like him. I mean, I was like, really? You said that? Oh my God. So it was really hard for me to like the defense at all. And I really thought I liked the prosecution, but I didn't base my determinations on who they were and how they behaved. Same thing is true with our defendants. You can have a defendant who is shouldn't be found guilty that you cannot stand. Like you want to punch the guy out. You wish he was guilty, but he may not be guilty. Or you have someone, some serial killers have presented themselves very nicely in court. And you look at them in their suit and they have a really nice behavior. And it's like, but the guy's a serial killer, but he's in court and you look at the guy and you're like, the jury's going, I can't believe that guy would kill anybody. He just seems very nice and sweet and kind of like, not the kind of, I can't believe he killed somebody. So again, you can get caught by personality and not be paying attention to the actual, what the evidence again is showing. And so I think that is a really important point, and that can really, mess you up. So let's see what else got here. You'd have to be a Martian not to have heard of this case. Yeah, and it's a funny thing because if you've never heard of the case, then you wonder what's wrong with that person. Like, I mean, how much of a rock do you live under? I mean, do you have some really weird problem where you're so secluded and so out of touch with everything that you've never heard of the case? So, if you had that person, I don't know that I want them on a jury because I think something's really wrong with them. If they said that, I think they're just lying their teeth off too. I just think, yeah, you're just full of crap. Of course you've heard about this case, but so yeah, this it's a really difficult thing. Again, I think that you need to have people who, again, I'm for a professional jury, where you essentially have people who are take all that crap out of there, all the emotion out, and they look at the evidence, and they do so many of these cases. What happens after a while is that if you're doing enough cases, you don't have, you don't really, one is not different from the other as far as examination. Now, it's not a perfect system. I'll agree again, it's not a perfect system, but I'm just not too fond with what is basically a crapshoot on the I'm sorry, I'm just looking here. No, that's not exactly. No, you're incorrect. I'm going to give this one more minute since I just joined. So far, it sounds like excusing Chauvin. Okay. Well, you're probably gone by now. And I see that you have a lovely name, and I won't say it even if it's not spelled quite that way. But excusing this trial. A trial is not about excusing someone. It isn't. It's not about excusing anyone, and that's the problem. And I think the whole statement here is exactly what the problem is. When you think that what I'm saying is excusing somebody, what you're saying is, I'm not paying any attention to the evidence. Because when you excuse somebody, that means you don't care what the evidence says. And I've just explained all the evidence on this videos. I've explained the evidence. I've explained how I view the evidence. I'm not trying to excuse anybody. It's simply a matter of, this is what the evidence shows. And a trial is not about excusing anybody. The trial is about proving beyond a reasonable doubt, not a shadow of a doubt, by the way. People think shadow of a doubt, which is, that's just impossible. A reasonable doubt that a person is guilty of these crimes. And I just don't think it was proven with a reasonable doubt, not at least the murder charges. So there you go. So, so of course we say this. Yes, Pat is defending him. Pat is a right-wing Trumper. Heck yeah. See, people have to go to politics with this because because obviously anybody who thinks that Chauvin is not guilty of murder is automatically a complete right-wing person who is not to be respected. And do I think that everybody who thinks that Chauvin is guilty of murder is an incredible left-wing Biden supporter? No, I don't. I think that I don't agree with them, but I don't think that's necessarily true. And I don't care. I don't care what your political beliefs are as far as that goes. Now, I do think that I can say, and I said this in my Facebook thing, that had Chauvin been not convicted or just convicted of the manslaughter charge, I think we would have seen what is known as the left, in the sense of, don't mean liberals, by the way. I mean a particular, very strong to a particular point of view that is with Black Lives Matter, that happens to be very vocal and also wants to see a lot of, I think riots would have ensued. Let's put it that way. Riots would have ensued because they would not have accepted the verdict. And the question is, are they not accepting the verdict because the verdict is wrong? Or are they not accepting the verdict because it doesn't support a specific agenda? So there we have politics that do play into it. So, but you can think of whatever you like to think of me. So there we go. So at anyway, okay. So the person who just said that is going, oh, somebody else says I'm ridiculous, and they're unsubscribing. Bye. There's a bunch of people that think it's a great verdict, and that's fine. Okay, because if you have not seen the other videos and you're saying that what I'm saying is completely wrong, that he was asphyxiated, here's what do you mean by he didn't asphyxiate him? Little Bilby, it was not proven that he asphyxiated him, and this is the point. If you go back to my number 3, which was all about the medical stuff, there is no proof that he was asphyxiated. That means he could not breathe due to what Chauvin was doing. In other words, that Chauvin put so much pressure on that he couldn't get air into himself and that kind of thing. That was not proven. It was alluded to, by the way. And then it's very complicated. But if you go back to my last video, you'll see that there was not proven that that he was asphyxiated. That was not proven. So you might believed it was looked like it, but it was not proven that he asphyxiated. Okay, this agitated delirium wasn't proved. In fact, he had no symptoms. That's not true. They had no symptoms of agitated delirium. But here's the problem with proving it, and I'm not saying you could prove it either. I don't think you could prove what he died of. We know he died of heart failure. He clearly took a lot of drugs. He did exhibit behaviors of agitated delirium. He did. That doesn't mean, see, agitated delirium is one of these things where unless you at the time can check certain things, you can't, it's more of a state. It's a bodily state, but it's hard to prove exactly at that moment. So after he dies, you can go back and you can look at things and say it looks like an agitated delirium. Can you absolutely prove it? No, but you can't prove asphyxiation at all. There was no proof to support that. So the point is, he died. He died of not getting enough oxygen in, but he was saying he could not breathe while he was standing up, which means that probably at that point he was having heart failure, heart arrhythmia that was causing him not to breathe while he was standing up. And that's why I'm saying second-degree manslaughter is a good possibility that if you're not following techniques and somebody says that let's face it, if you're the guy's still fighting, and you got to understand George Floyd, and this is again, people who have never been around police. George Floyd's a big damn dude, big guy. And some of these guys are very hard to control when they're in that state. And you, as an officer, when you're trying to hold on to them, you can feel. We can't feel this because we can't see it. But when you're trying to grab their arm, and their arm is just, it's the strength behind it. That's why they have all these guys trying to hold him down, because he's stronger than you think from just looking. You're looking at a distance, going, it's not that big a deal. You could just hold him down. It's not that easy. So should they have used a different position? Should they have moved him on the side? Should they have done this and that? Perhaps so, but because he was acting in a state that was not a normal state. So a normal state would have been just get in the damn car and sit down. Normally, you would want to sit in the car because what's the big deal? I mean, he was theoretically going to go to jail no matter what he did. I mean, it's not like this, it's not like Floyd hasn't been to jail before. The guy's been in prison. I mean, he is a violent offender. He's a repeat offender. He's got a long criminal history. He's not new to the game. And people keep thinking, oh my God, he didn't know what's happening. No, George Floyd's been through this so many damn times. He knows exactly what's going on. All he had to do, because he knew first of all that why he was being stopped. Why they came up to him, because it was said that he passed bad money, counterfeit money. Then he was acting in such a state that he shouldn't be behind the wheel of a car. So they knew he was just something, had drugs on him. They knew he was taking drugs. All he had to do was put his hands behind him, get the cuffs on like he'd done before, although I don't know how many times he's fought the police every single time. Put his hands behind him, get in the car, they drive him to the jail, they put him there, and that's that. But when you have taken too many drugs, your brain is going wacko, and you're not feeling good, and maybe your heart is going to arrhythmia, and you're starting to cave in, and you're freaking out. I'm going to die. I can't breathe. Oh, if I go in the police car, I'm going to die. That's not normal to say that. So either he's bullshitting, which also happens all the time. So you can't tell if you're a police officer, is this guy telling the truth, or is it just another one who claims he can't breathe? Another one who claims he's going to die in the car. They've heard this before, by the way. So they don't know how much is true and how much isn't. All they know is they got a big, huge guy who's not cooperating, and they're trying to get him under control. That's what they know. So, people want to make it so easy that to understand things that you don't necessarily, that are not necessarily so clear. The job is, Okay. Oh no, this I will disagree with this entirely. The job is dangerous, and now if they resist arrest, wait a minute, it's okay. Oh, yeah, okay. I read this another way. So Sherry's saying the job is dangerous, and now if they resist arrest, it's okay. In other words, when you get somebody in there and they start resisting arrest, you're supposed to go, okay, I'm stepping back. And when you do that, you put the danger when you're trying to arrest somebody. It's dangerous, folks. People don't understand it's dangerous. You don't know what these guys can do, what they can do in a second, how they can hurt you. They can grab your weapon. They can pull a weapon out you didn't know they had. It's a very frightening situation. People don't get that. And as Sherry says, all officers should resign. No job is worth prison. And that's what's going to be happening. Much as we would like to have a perfect world and every police officer is perfect. Now, mind you, when you hire police officers, they're no different than teachers, doctors, babysitters. There's always some squirrely ones in the bunch. I mean, once in a while you get one that you really want to get rid of, shouldn't be on the force, shouldn't be there, shouldn't be a teacher, shouldn't be in the medical profession. You got perverts in the medical profession. You got babysitters and daycare people who are Munchausen syndrome by proxy and kill children. I mean, this stuff happens in every profession. And police work, you have to get strong, sometimes egotistical, sometimes tough kind of people, because if you're a wimp, you're not going to do this work. Let me tell you, I'm not suited to be on the street. Some people have asked you, why didn't you become a detective? Because, as a profile, and I believe detectives are the profilers of the world. It's because I didn't want to do the 10 years, 15 years on the street, because I'm chicken shit. I mean, I'm not good at grabbing people and throwing them around, I mean, that's not me. It takes a strong person. So when you have a certain type of person you have to get into police work, and a few of those, maybe not so perfect. Maybe the ones you want to get off the force. I'm not saying Chauvin may not be one you want to get off the force, which was why, again, manslaughter might have been a perfectly reasonable charge. He lost his job. He gets whatever time in prison he gets. But murder is another matter. And being charged with murder for something that wasn't murder is an issue. So, it's police work. Oh, and this is something else people say. Well, if you can't handle the job, you shouldn't be a police officer. If you're scared, you shouldn't be a police officer. Really? So you don't think police officers feel fear? You think it should be fearless? Are you kidding me? I mean, are you that unrealistic? You get up in the morning, you put your clothes on, you say goodbye to your 3 beautiful children and your wife or husband, and you walk out the door, and now you're in some area in the middle of the night, 3:00 in the morning, and the gangbangers are out there, and then all of a sudden guns start firing, and now one's being fired at you, and you can't see the dude, and you don't think you're going to be scared? You're going to be scared shitless. And it's amazing that you can even keep your mind together at all. So. And when you're arresting people, you always worry that something's going to go wrong when you do that, not to either hurt yourself or hurt them or hurt somebody else. So, when they say, oh, they should have left George Floyd alone. It was just maybe bad money. Okay. But he was behind the wheel of a car and he couldn't function. So if they had let George Floyd drive away and he killed some child, then everybody would say, why didn't the police stop him? It's a thankless job sometimes. And I think people need to understand, yeah, there are bad cops out there and I want them gone too, but the complete attitude that all cops are just horrible people now is just pretty sad. Pretty sad. So, it just, we're really setting ourselves up into a bad situation. There is okay. See, this is the kind of commentary I have issues with. Okay, Lisa, Chauvin is a sadist. You have absolutely no proof of that, and this is kind of thing I think is unacceptable. And I'm not saying you can't have a thought, and you're saying that because that's your thought, but I don't have proof of that. There is no proof of that. Okay, there just isn't, and I don't like things being said that aren't necessarily so. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Would you call George Floyd a sadist? He held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. Is he a sadist? Now, his girlfriend, who he had for 3 years, would say, no, he was very loving toward me. Just saying. I don't know George. I don't know Chauvin. I don't know what kind of human being he was. I don't know whether people liked him or didn't like him. I don't know this part about him. Okay. I don't know, but be careful when you look at a face, the person's like this. I mean, I have been accused of having all kinds of faces. I have a weird smile that goes up on one side. I've been called smirky. She smirks. I've had people really get upset because I say I laugh when I talk about crime, and that means I'm a psychopath. I don't care about human beings who've been hurt. No, that's not it. It's just, you do a lot of television work, and it's very hard to go on television in these situations where, hi, Pat, so glad you could join us tonight. And you go, yes, I'm here to join you tonight. It's so, and I have a black sense of humor. That's just true. So sometimes I do have that going. Doesn't mean I don't care about the victims. Absolutely. Care about the victims. Doesn't mean I don't hate horrible crimes. It doesn't mean I don't want a improved crime system because I can smile, but people catch you at a moment and they say, oh, see, that's what that person's like. And they do not know that. So I don't go where I don't know. And I say, I don't have to like Chauvin or dislike Chauvin. He may be a shitbird. I mean, I don't know. This may be a guy that if I met him once on the force, I'd say, Jesus Christ, that dude needs to be off the force. I don't know. All I know is what I saw presented in court. And the whole point is what's presented in court. We're supposed to be about a proper trial. And that's concerning to me. What was this? I like the prosecution's closing arguments where the prosecutor attempted to argue that the officers need your consent to arrest you. And he said he wasn't resisting. He just wasn't able to comply. This is, Zone. I wish I wasn't on a plane with bad internet yesterday. I mean, no internet. I couldn't believe it. I was on a plane for 6 hours and I was going to watch everything. I'm like, seriously. And then I got home. I was just too tired to deal with it. So that was going to be my plan for, when I came to do the show, but then this all went this way. But that's, yeah. I mean, the whole thing about being arrested is that, and I think this is misunderstood a lot. When a police officer, I'm not saying I have not, I've never been arrested. Okay. Never been arrested. But over the years, I've been stopped for a traffic violation, speeding. Yeah. I've been caught for speeding. I never resisted. I always complied, 100% complied. And sometimes I got stuck with a damn ticket. And I was upset that I got to pay the damn ticket, but I was guilty. So, it's like, oh, damn it, I got caught. When you're committing a crime, and usually if you got handcuffs on you, you've been committing a crime. I get really sick of people trying to say, he wasn't doing anything. No. Doing drugs, you may want to make that a totally legal thing. And when it becomes totally legal, you can argue it then. The kind of drugs that George Floyd was involved with, they were illegal. By buying those drugs, you commit a crime. By selling those drugs, you commit a crime. So those are crimes right there. There's that alleged passing of counterfeit money. I'm not going to say he did pass counterfeit money, but if he did, that is a crime. And so these are crimes. You're committing a crime. Usually when you get arrested, it's because you've been committing a crime. Once in a rare while, there can be a mistaken identity. I don't know. There can be a rare thing that happens where you're arrested, where you're not guilty, or you shouldn't have been arrested. You know what you do when that happens? You put your hands behind you, you get arrested, you get in the vehicle, you go to jail, then you get out, and then you deal with it then. You deal with it in court. And then if it was completely like illegal as hell, then you can sue the shit out of the police department. But when you're being arrested, almost all 99.99999% of the time when people are being arrested, it's because they were committing a crime. And a good portion of the criminals who commit these crimes first of all, they know damn well they're committing a crime. They know damn well the police must arrest them. That's what the point of having police and having crimes be crimes. If they weren't crimes, no one would arrest them. So when they've committed the crime, a good portion of criminals, not most, but a good portion of criminals will say, okay, and they'll put their hands behind their back. They get the gloves on, sometimes even chit chat with the cop. They get in, they're put in the vehicle, they're driven to the jail, they post bail, they walk. they get out of jail and then they deal with it. And a lot of times they've gone through this so many damn times. I mean, it's like, you got me again, And then there are those who, no matter how many times have been through the system, will fight like a son of a bitch when you try to restrain them. They will bite, they will spit, they will kick, they will pull out weapons you did not know they were on them. They can do all kinds of weird crap to you. So just the simple fact that you can get injured by these guys when you're trying to arrest them, and there's no reason for them to fight ever. I mean, resisting arrest is a crime in itself. You can't do that. You have to comply. You have to. And to say he could not comply? What do you mean he couldn't comply? He couldn't comply because he didn't want to comply. Now, he may have been afraid of what? He was going to die in the police vehicle? Really? Okay. All he could say, call an ambulance. I want to sit on the curb. He could have made, but he said he wanted to go and lay on the ground. So, I mean, it's like he could have just simply sat in the car and be taken to the jail, but he's probably been through this a million times and he knows what he's doing. This is not a first-time criminal. George Floyd was a long-time felon. And he's a repeat offender, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And if he's doing a lot of drugs, well, he put himself in that situation. So, so at any rate, let's see good here. Okay, I want to talk about experts. The experts disagreed. With who? Me? No excess writing, stripping clothes off, superhuman strength, not hearing or responding to questions, almost always present. There are certain things. It depends how long it's going on. It depends under what conditions it's going on. And there's experts. Let me tell you about experts. Who's experts? Whose experts are these? Oh, the prosecution's experts? Okay. They know they'll disagree. There's experts everywhere that disagree. That's the point. I'm not saying I could prove agitated delirium. What I'm saying is a lot of his behaviors were he was freaking out. He was freaking out. If you watch that video from the beginning, he was freaking out. He was acting out. He was not cooperating. He wouldn't get in the car. He said he couldn't breathe. So, he had a lot of stuff going on. So, you can argue that if you want to, but whatever. I say that, but the point being that it's, thank you, Firefly. It's very nice of you. Firefly says, really sad all the way around. Nobody really wins. You're awesome, Pat. Seen you on TV shows. TV show had great insight. Thank you very much. That's very sweet of you. Nobody wins when all this emotion is, and there's this anger, So what I'm saying today, I see the people here. Oh, I used to like you. I see this. I used to like you, and now you're a complete freaking idiot. Bye. Now, here's my point. If you liked me in the past, because I explained different cases and you thought my insight was very good, you thought my profiling was good. This one case, you don't like my profiling, and I am therefore an ass, and I am stupid, and I'm a fraud, and all of a sudden, oh, you're crazy. Why? Because you have an emotional connection to this case and an agenda, and you're very angry, and therefore you have to put me in a political category. And you can't see me look at this way. I've had the same reaction on the Madeleine McCann case. As a matter of fact, I recently did a show on the Madeleine McCann. Woohoo! The haters have come out of the back. What do they say? Pat Brown she's out doing her stupid stuff again. Pat Brown is this. Pat Brown is that. West Memphis 3, great hate off of the West Memphis 3 case as well. That's one of those that just if you don't agree with somebody, they will come after you with pitchforks. And this is what's happening in this case. And this is a sad thing, because if you think Dereck Chauvin is guilty of murder, I don't dislike you. I don't have to hate you. You might explain your reasons, and I may disagree with the reasons. I mean, that's what a conversation is about. That's what a discussion is about. And I've explained as much as I can possibly explain for my reasoning and for why I think the verdict should have been second-degree manslaughter and not murder. And if you hate me for having those so that's then that's the way you think. Well, you're saying about this. I don't remember this one, but there's a great interview between Tucker Carlson and forensic pathologist Michael Baden online, where Carlson calls him out as a paid expert in the O.J. Simpson case. Well, here's the thing. In this particular case, the Dr. Tobin who came on, made this big deal. I explained this in the last thing, but it's worth re-explaining. Dr. Chauvin came on and said he wasn't being paid for this case. And I'm like, the defense should have been all over that, because I'm like, wait a minute, Dr. Chauvin, you have testified in 50 cases of malpractice, sometimes for the hospital, sometimes for the patient. And you got paid for every one of those cases. And why not this case? You're giving a medical opinion. And yet for this medical opinion, you don't want to be paid. Why? And he claims it's because he's never done a criminal case before. That is the biggest nonsense I've ever heard. Nobody says, it's like me saying, well, I like to give tours. And because I've given 50 tours of different countries in the world, but because I've never been to Brazil before, I'm going to not charge for the tour. What? No. I mean, it's my job. It's my profession. And he's a professional testifier, right? So he got paid huge amount of money for all these others. And then suddenly he's going to do it for nothing. Why? What would be the reasoning behind that? And it couldn't just be the fact that somebody died, because in all the cases that he testified, 50 cases, guess what? He's a pulmonary expert. So 50 of those people died. They all died. So he's got 50 dead people. Weren't their lives important? If there was malpractice, at least half of them, then half of those people, he was on the other side for, did he not care they died through malpractice? They were murdered too. So why suddenly George Floyd, you'll do it for free? So that was very suspicious. That meant to me he had an agenda behind it. Now, somebody pointed out, well, hey, you also can get paid. If you get paid, then you don't care who you work for as long as you get paid. So you'll just change your testimony. Hey, if prosecution pays me, I'm going to say George Floyd died as asphyxiation. And if the defense hires me, I'm going to say Chauvin didn't asphyxiate him. And guess what? That's absolutely true. And I have a lot of problem with the experts, because I've seen experts come on and say stuff I know they know is a lie. And they'll come on there because I'm making $50,000 for testifying in one. It's just ridiculous sums of money they get paid to testify. But they'll take the money. And I know they're talking crap, because I even know their stuff because I've read their books and I've seen them do good stuff. And then I see them do that. And I'm like, you just got paid money and that you're willing to lie for that? So, but here's the problem. Yes, they are. And therefore, the jury's sitting there again going, wonder who's telling me the truth, the prosecution witness or the defense witness? Because they're both testifying about the same thing. They're both medical experts, for example, Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so, but they totally disagree. So who am I supposed to believe? The one I like more? The one who looks nicer? I mean, who do I believe? They're both being paid. Oh, the guy's not being paid, so he's more believable now, which is exactly why the prosecution didn't bring that up. And Tobin said, I wasn't paid, so you should believe me. So, this stuff it's frustrating because the jury can get very much fooled by this stuff and not pay attention to what's being said, but attention to the circumstances all surrounding that. Okay, let's look at the deserve to die crap. He committed a crime, granted, but he didn't deserve to die. The cop used excessive force. If they hadn't, he would. If not, they wouldn't have settled with the family. Absolutely, that's not true, Mary. First of all, a number of things aren't true. Okay, he committed a crime, but he didn't deserve to die. Okay, let me start with that. Anybody who's murdered, when you say didn't deserve to die, yeah, okay. It's an interesting thing. It's not like, of course, if he was killed, if he was murdered, it doesn't matter whether he's deserved or didn't deserve it. It's a crime. Let's get the emotion out of it. Didn't deserve it. No. Okay. It's a crime. Okay. Simply a crime. Committing murder is a crime. All right. We don't have to worry about whether the person who got killed deserved it or didn't deserve it. Yes. If George Floyd, let's go to a serial killer. A serial killer is a sexual psychopath. All right. Let's say the guy killed 10 children and he were in George Floyd's place and he fought the police and died. And he was a 10-time serial killer of little children. He tortured the children. Would you say, yes, he's a serial killer who killed children, but he didn't deserve to die? Probably you wouldn't say that as much. See, that's as they say where the emotion comes into it. That serial killer, if he was murdered, was also murdered. whether you liked him or you didn't like him. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. The crime is the crime. So when you're in a courtroom, it doesn't matter what you think of George Floyd. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter that he's a good guy or a bad guy as far as the actual issue comes down to. All right? So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. George Floyd, whether you like him or you didn't like him, regardless of what he's done in his life, if he commits a crime, he should pay for his crimes. Because he commits crimes, he should pay for those crimes. So when he went in and put a gun to a woman, a pregnant woman, and committed, a home invasion, he went to prison. Not because a woman didn't deserve to have that happen to her, but because George Floyd committed a crime. All right? Period. That's what the legal system is about. It's not about deserving. It's about legal systems that, that we have a set legal system so that when you do something that's wrong, there is a payment you have to pay for doing what is wrong. So let's get the emotion out of, he didn't deserve it. There's not anything to do with anything. And there was another point. I forgot what the other point I was going to make. I can't remember. The settlement. Yeah, they'll settle. Companies settle with people who companies just want them to shut up and go away because it's bad publicity. First of all, our mayor of Minnesota, I'm sorry, but is an ass. And the things that he's done and said, he had no business. Like he said, he already talked about, that he wanted Chauvin convicted of murder. And he should not have said that as the mayor of the town when the jury was still out. You don't say things like that. You don't do that. That's just wrong. So you just say, all I need to say was that the jury is going to do what the jury is going to do. Let's hope that they examine the evidence well and that they come up with a proper verdict. That's all you have to say. You don't have to say what you think the verdict should be when you're the mayor or the president or Maxine Waters. You just say, want the proper verdict because you're in a political position. So will they settle for no reason? Absolutely. They'll settle to shut people up because the publicity was horrific on this case. Somebody decides they'll settle. They settle on a lot of cases, and some of them I thought were absolutely ludicrous that they settled on. But they do that all the time. I mean, that's just not true. And as far as excessive force, then that comes down to, the proof of excessive force. And then if you're using, that excessive force, and that was a very tricky issue. But, again, we're talking about, was it murder? And I don't find that to be true. Who was that? Werner Smith? I'm trying to remember this. Werner Spitz is a famous paid expert in the Casey Anthony case. I can't remember this. And the West Memphis 3. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's often cited as expert to help Anthony get away with murder. Well, yeah. I mean, and Spitz. And Spitz. This is interesting. There's a book. I even have it right here. Is that one? Is that it? Oh, okay. Anyway, there's a huge book on forensic pathology, which it's got Spitz's name on it, and it's one of the Bibles of forensic pathology. But doesn't mean he won't. I don't necessarily agree with everything he testifies to. So, it's, and this is, what's that really say? Oh, here's a good, Christine says, tunnel vision fueled by emotional pressure led the criminal justice to single-mindedly focus on the suspect and build a case for conviction, ignoring evidence that points away from guilt. Well, yes and no. I mean, the prosecution is supposed to. The prosecution is supposed to build a case. I mean, that's their job. If they're prosecuting, I mean, they have to decide to prosecute. They decided to do so. And for those people who say that a prosecution will never prosecute if, the person's innocent, well, yeah, okay. So there's many cases the prosecution will not even take to court because they don't think they can absolutely win, even though they know the guy's guilty. They don't even want to leave it in a jury's hands. They'll just tell the police department who's worked their ass off on a case, yeah, we know the guy's guilty as hell. There's a ton of circumstantial evidence, but we haven't quite got enough for me to be sure that I can win the case hands down, and I don't want to win my 99.7 win rate. So I'm not going to take it to court because I don't want to lose. Then you get other cases where a guy will be convicted who didn't commit the crime. And I'm not talking about somebody being railroaded to some really crazy extent because of some huge political or racial thing. I'm just talking about they got some guy that's kind of a loser, and they want to close the case down, but they got the loser, so they'll use him and get him to confess to a case he didn't really commit, or they'll bring him to court and they'll just get him convicted, and maybe the jury just go along with it because it seems like it could be true. And so that happens. So a prosecution is never absolutely 100% honorable. The defense is not necessarily so either. So, let's not have, rose-colored glasses on about anything. The question really is trying to be as reasonable and logical as we can be. This is an interesting point. As a matter of fact, a Charity, thank you for bringing this up. Firefly said that, he had his, Chauvin had his hand in his pocket, and he's like, and then he had his hand in his pocket, which gave him the appearance of really being like nonchalant about, hey, look, I'm just doing this guy. And he had that look on his face. It was kind of arrogant looking, and it didn't go over well in the video. And if Charity says he did not have his hands in his pockets, he was wearing black gloves that made it look like his hands were in his pockets. And, it's interesting because I don't know if that was part of the defense, again, because I missed that because I was on the plane. But so I did read that he supposedly had his hands kind of like this, and they were on his leg, and it just, the appearance was that they were in pockets when they were not. And I can't verify that, but I did read that. But, this is one of the tricky parts in this whole case is how much pressure. And let me tell you, the thing about video can be very deceptive, depending on the angle that you're at, and you can't really always quite see. And that's why Tobit even said, 75%, I think he had 75% of his weight on. You're a pulmonary expert. You're not an expert on weight when your person's leaning on somebody's, where they have their, there's a really strong spot here. And they even admitted that if you're pressing on that strong spot, you're actually not blocking anything here. It's just, there's pressure on. You do it yourself. You can put your hand in and you can press as hard as you may not feel comfortable, but you can press really goddamn hard and you're not blocking anything. Now you come down here and you have more of a problem. So, and also it depends how long you're pressing. If you press for a second and you lift up, and you press for a second and you lift up, there's all kinds of degrees and issues. And so it's really hard to tell, if he thinks he's in a position where he says, okay, I got the guy held down, got my knee in a proper place where it's not cutting off his oxygen. I'm just going to sit here and wait for I'm going to wait for the damn ambulance to show up. And all these assholes are standing here taking photos of me. I'm like, whatever, because I've done this, again, 17 years. How many times has he done something similar to restrain somebody and nobody ever died? So I don't believe for a minute that Chauvin thought he was killing him. Now, then again, I don't think it was proven that he did. I think it just looked really bad, because it did look really bad, and we're at a time when the whole country's shut down, everybody's nerves are on edge, and so this was a fire set on this whole case, and it's unfortunate because again we're unable to look at these things in a more rational point of view. And I think we're going to see a really concerning issue over the police issues in the future is who's going to join the police force if we don't have rational trials, and we have trials which are being, where we have an entire country saying if you let this person walk, we're going to burn the country down. I mean, you can't have a fair trial under those circumstances. Firefly says Chauvin's lawyers are drawing up appeals as we speak. Yeah, that is. Very, very correct. That is going to happen because there's no way there's not going to be appeal in this case. There's so many things that went amiss in this case, which I think he could complain about his lawyer. He could complain about. There's a whole bunch of things. He's going to get the appeal is going to happen, which then we're going to have to go through this all over again, which is going to be really tiring. Dr. Ahmed, I'm trying to figure out how to say your name because I can't hear you. I think Abdel Fattah. I'm hoping I'm saying it right, Dr. Abdel Fattah. Of course, nobody deserves to die, and everybody deserves due process. We are not the judge, the executioner, the juries. Yeah, it's the same thing. Basically, we deserve fairness, regardless of who we are. Again, the system should be fair. Whether you're a horrible criminal or you're a cop that people don't like, it doesn't matter. It matters that the system works and that we have fairness in the system. So and that's if we can't have that, if we're just going to go on, we don't like people, and that's not a good reason it's not how we work, or at least it's not supposed to be how we work. Let me see what else we have. Any other comments here? Oh, I like this one. The gag orders. Yes, I'm with you on that. And I don't know how many countries do this. We should protest for gag orders. I know there are countries that really shut down the media when it comes to talking about crimes before they're allowed to be to go to court, because this is. Oh, and here. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because I am really annoyed by this in general. Defense attorney, you have how many trials have we seen? I think Casey Anthony's was one of them, where the actual attorney, the defense attorney, actually goes on talk shows and talks about the case on talk shows before the trial is over. They're actually talking to the entire public on national media, to every single person. What the heck? What the heck? I mean, that's outrageous. They should not be allowed. Once any lawyer should not be allowed to talk about the case, period. That should be just a profession. That should be a rule. I don't understand why lawyers out there talking about the case. And I don't understand why this jury was not sequestered way early. I mean, the fact there was no sequestering of this jury, that's worth an appeal right there, because that's just outrageous. They didn't sequester the jury. I've seen juries sequestered for little crap that isn't even that important. And yet, for something like this, with the amount of media and pressure they had, they should have been sequestered. That's just crazy. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to stop today, because I could be here all night. But I just want to remind everybody again that it's about proper methodology for the police department. It's also about proper methodology for the court system, and keeping out as much of the outside nonsense that we can keep out. And if we can't do that, I think we're in great trouble if we can't do that, because then every case is going to become like this. And as a matter of fact, we have other police cases coming up, and it's just turning into this free for all of screaming and yelling and trying to manipulate the people before they even get on the shows. Even get to trial. And it's just. If we want to be a kind of country that doesn't respect having any kind of proper judicial system, we're going to have that kind of great country. Oh, thank you, Firefly and Charity. Thank you. Say refreshing points. I thank you for that. I'm trying to be rational here, and this is what I try to do for a living, is try to be very logical about things. And it doesn't mean I don't have emotions, but it means when I'm trying to talk about this kind of thing, everybody's got emotions. Everybody has political views. We all do. And once upon a time, as a matter of fact, before the last number of years, we used to be able to sit in a bar over a beer and be of different viewpoints on things. We could be different viewpoints politically. We could be different viewpoints on this particular case. And we could sit there and have a chat without somebody throwing a beer in our face and saying, you're a piece of shit, and I never want to speak to you again. So all I hope is that, if people don't like me, they don't like me, they can go away. And I've always said to people, you can, everybody can have their own opinion. Nobody has to like me or like the way I do things. There are people who do not like my profiling methodology or the way I speak about things. And that's why we have different kinds of people in the world. And it's like writing books, there are books that I absolutely hate and other people love. And I'm thinking, God, how can you like that book? I just think it was total junk. And that author just made $1 million off of that junky book. And I wish I'd written it, but I write my way. And there are people who like the way I write, and there are people who don't like it. So we all have our own opinions, but I can tell you one thing, and I promise this to be true. I will always just speak straight. I'll speak my mind. Nobody owns me, and nobody can buy me. So I can live life perfectly fine as the way I am. So and that makes me feel good, because I say I'm not buyable. I've always been that way on television. It's like you can't make me say something. So I'll say what I think is true, and that's the way it is. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But if you give me a pile of money, I'm not going to say it your way, because if it's not true, it's not true. So that's just me. And I live by that. So, I can't hurt my feelings. So anyway, I'm so glad you came here today. This was really unexpected. I'm going to go to sleep because I haven't had enough sleep. But but I'm glad you came here today, and I'm going to put this up because I always forget. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And somebody on the Madeline McCann did the things. She's out with her begging bowl again. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, I can survive fine without the begging bowl. Thank you. However, there is a point to YouTube, although they pretty much killed off a good portion of YouTube people. The way they monetize things, they pretty much wiped out 90% of the people, and now we're only really giving money to the top 10%. And I don't expect to be there, but I will tell you this: it is nice to be supported on YouTube because it takes a lot of time and energy to do these things, and I really want to improve the channel. I'm looking very much forward to putting out my profiling school, where I talk about all kinds of different issues in profiling, people who've always wanted to know, or students, anybody who wants to learn more about profiling. I'm going to put out different videos on that. And then of course, I want to keep up with the news and do that in different cases that I find fascinating and that I finally get to talk about fully, as opposed to being on television where I always got, my soundbite. And then sometimes when I've done, people don't realize this, but I've done shows where they interview me for half an hour taped, and I give all this information about a particular case, and then when the show comes out, they show and go, and then Pat Brown said, "He's a bad guy," and that's it. I'm like, but what about the other 29 minutes and 30 seconds I said something, and that was the interesting stuff. Sometimes they're just looking for that thing that they want to stick in there. And so now I don't have to follow any of those rules. No one's going to edit me, and it's great. So it's a real different kind of thing to be able to do. So I am enjoying it because I have a lot more freedom. So I'm glad you're here. So please do like and subscribe so I can keep being here. And I don't know that I'll be talking about this case again for a long time. Maybe when the appeal, which I say is going to show up. Yeah. I think it's going to show up. So at any rate, I do happy you're here. And so thank you very much for coming. I'm glad. It's fun to do. It's fun to do. I like to do live because I actually like the interaction with people more than I like to do things without the interaction. So I think it's fun this way. So anyway, bye everybody. I will see you soon. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I think I've planned for Sunday, because Sunday at 3:00 is when I do live shows about something. I do have a Jean Bonnet show coming up, and so if I have enough time to get that prepared, I'll do that one on Sunday, but I might do something else, so I'm not sure yet. So anyway, see you soon. Bye everybody, and thank you for being here.